Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Report. I'm your host, Chris Berg, Head of Business Development, Land Acquisition here in California. For Abernathy Holdings, we build Class A self-storage sites in California and Arizona. Excited to introduce you to our guest today, Brandon Robinson. He's the co-founder of Calvary Realty. Over $200 million in self-storage transactions closed, done. I think what's going to be exciting about this conversation is he started his real estate career in self-storage 16 years ago. So he's seen a lot that's transpired in this asset class, mainly focused in California originally. And so I think there's going to be some very interesting stories that he'll be able to share today. So Brandon, thank you for the time. It's great to have you, man.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me.
So let's just start there. I mean, 2007, self-storage is not what it is today, right? I mean, it was a much different asset class then. So how did you end up in self-storage, and how did you say, yeah, this is my asset class of choice?
So I didn't actually choose self-storage.
It chose you, right?
It did. So I chose real estate, right? So I graduated from Whittier College 2006, and I wanted to get into commercial real estate because I had some mentors and father figures that I saw that actually were doing very well in commercial real estate. So got my license, interviewed with a couple different companies, and then found a guy that named Victor Martinez, and he still has his practice today. They sell storages, but mainly mobile home parks. They're out of Ontario, California. And he hired me to work on his commercial real estate team and told me I was going to be selling storages. I actually wanted to sell something that was a little bit more sexy and appealing at the time, like office, retail, apartments. And he was like, nope, I need somebody to sell storages, because he kind of specialized in that niche of mobile home parks and self storages. So got into the business, and like you said, man, it's a lot different now than it was back then. I can remember selling my first deal that I sold was to A American Self Storage. They're an outfit out of Los Angeles, and at the time, they were the largest private owner of storages in the nation. They were like number 6 on the top 100.
Wow.
I sold them a storage in Hesperia, Class A, 75,000 square feet. Sold it to them for $30 a square foot. Eight and a half. It was an 8.5% cap rate on actual numbers. It was 70% occupied, had room for upside. So, back then it was pretty common for us to sell storages in some of these major metro areas for 7-8% cap rates. Like, that was normal. Even Orange County, LA County. I sold deals in Sun Valley and other parts of LA County for close to an 8% cap rate, and that was considered fair and normal at the time. So it's a lot of changes.
I was going to say, so times have changed. And so when you first got started in this asset class, like you said, you were looking for something different. Did it just kind of grow on you? And then you realize, whoa, there's a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah, it did grow on me, because prior to that, I didn't even know that self-storage was actually a piece of commercial real estate that you could sell. But it grew on me because it became a niche. I became known as the storage guy. At that time when I started in California, it was only like 4 or 5 people doing it in the entire state. You had me, you had Greg Wells. He was at I think Grubb and Ellis, or one of the other companies. You had Dean Keller, who he had Bandcap, which it was him and Carl Toohey at the time, and they let her split up, and Carl founded the Performance Group. So it was Greg, it was Carl, it was Dean Keller, Steve Grossman, and I think there was one other one. There was a guy named Dave Anderson and Clifford Crow. They worked for Lee and Associates. So those are like the only folks doing storage in California. And then later came the other guys, like Marcus started hiring guys to do storage, like Nick Walker. I remember when he first went to Marcus Millichap in like 2008 or 9, because the,
Wow.
the industry just started to grow. And I guess these bigger companies started seeing a lot of us smaller guys selling a bunch of storages, making a bunch of money, and they wanted a piece of the action. So then that's when you started to see the Marcuses and the Cushmans and Colliers started to form these national storage groups.
I mean, what a blessing, like you said, how it chose you. You didn't necessarily choose it. So let's
Yeah,
talk about, you started in 2007, right before the great financial crisis.
yeah.
Walk us through what storage was like then, because we all know that's one of the great things about it as an asset class, is it typically weathers recessions or those kind of pricey better than others. So walk us through that. And then what are some of the biggest changes you've seen over these last 16 years?
Yeah. So at that time, even I know they say storage is recession proof, but the pricing is not. So even though these storages may have been, hey, they may have been 80%, 90% full, well, when you had interest rates go up, that caused the pricing to come down. And now investors were buying, they wanted to buy stuff at 9% cap rates. There were some 10% cap rate deals that myself and some of the other brokers were doing. So during that time of, I would say 2008 to 2012, a lot of the stuff that I sold was, distress assets. It was stuff where on the verge of foreclosure, or a partnership that had gone bad, right? You had these guys that had all these ideas of, hey, this property is going to do well, it's going to make us a great return, but then the recession hit, the numbers don't look the way they should, so they got into a fight, and they decide to sell. Selling stuff for banks, it was a difficult time. And even though storage, I know they say storage is recession proof, the income and you might be fully occupied, but in terms of what buyers would pay, that does go down when you do have a recession. So I started to see things change maybe around 2013 is when we started to come out of that recession, and we started to see normal deals happening that were not some type of distress or duress situation. As far as things that I've seen change in storage since then, uh, in 2007, there really was no such thing as an automated facility or remote management. Right now, like, that's very popular, and you see these groups such as like Red Dot, KO Storage, SROA Capital, Cohen Investments, where they own dozens and hundreds of facilities that are remotely managed, and they're unmanned facilities, and that's kind of their niche and their game plan. But prior to, I would say maybe 2014, 15, if you had a facility that was 30,000 square feet or above, then you had to have a manager on site. There wasn't all this automation, go online and rent a storage unit. A lot of storage facilities didn't even have websites back then. So in order for us to get market data, like I remember I used to have to do rent comps, and I used to have to physically call owners and physically call property managers to get rent comparable information, and get occupancy statistics. Whereas now, okay, you can go on. So you have StoreTrack, you have Yardi, you have Radius Plus that has all this information that they're pulling from online. So yeah, I've seen the business go more online. I've seen the business become more remote management. Back then, I would say maybe half of the facilities didn't even have management software. Yeah, so that there were two big ones. There was Quick Store and SiteLink, and Storage Commander. That was the third one. Those were like the three top dogs in terms of storage management software, and half the people didn't even use them. It was still QuickBooks and Excel spreadsheets and Word documents. So yeah, I've seen the business really become digitized,
Yeah.
and yeah, like more than it ever has been before.
Welcome to the 21st century now, right? And I want to touch on that in a moment. But first, you mentioned about the great financial crisis, and there were some distressed assets.
Yeah.
I'm curious, because of how quickly rates have gone up, if you see any similarities today. And I say that only because at the SSA event in Vegas, Brian Cohn from Andover Properties said, with what we're seeing right now, we might just start buying paper. We're going to get better returns just doing that. And he like just took the oxygen out of the room when he said that, right? I mean, people are like what? I just want to get your thoughts on that.
So no, so I haven't lived through that time. I don't think that now is the same as that time, because there's a lot more money and a lot more interest in storage now than there was back then. Back then, you didn't have as much institutional investors, private capital chasing storage. You had the big dogs up top, right? You had Public, Extra Space, the REITs, but a lot of it was really mom and pop operators, small local regional guys. They talk about how the business is a lot of mom and pops now. Well, back then it was even more so. So I think that affected them a lot more than it does these guys today, where mom and pops were borrowing at much higher rates than someone like an institutional company like a Merritt Hill Capital or Prime or someone else, some of those companies can borrow at today. So I think because of the level of interest and the level of attention that storage has gotten, I don't think we are near the level that we were at in storage in 2008, especially when you see a lot of people getting out of apartments, retail, and office, which are struggling right now, in this post-COVID world. A lot of that money is now coming into storage. So I don't, while the pricing has been coming down, cap rates have been going up, I don't see that type of catastrophe that I saw in storage from 2008 to 2012.
Thank you for that. Let's talk about financing right now, because I think you're alluding to, you said, hey, it's becoming more digitized. We talked about it at SSA as well, where the public rates aren't necessarily the internal rates. They're lowering those public rates for quick customer acquisition. I guess, what are you seeing on the ground right now, specifically in California? What are some of the dynamics that you think are important to know?
Yeah, so in regards to financing for purchases, is that where you're getting at?
Yeah, just like, one of the things now is the banks, right? Like, to underwrite stuff, they're just seeing these public rates. And I know for us and other people are like, well, yeah, that's the public rate, but boy, you go inside and the rates are different. So it's making it a little bit challenging for some people maybe to underwrite.
Yeah. So I can tell you what I'm saying now is it's tougher for the non-institutional guys to get deals done. So like I said, the mom and pop or the folks that just are small partnerships that maybe own less than 10 facilities, for them, if they go to a bank right now, they're being quoted rates that are in the mid sevens. There's some deals that we're doing where buyers are getting interest. They're getting loans at 7.5% interest. There's other folks that are looking to refinance, and they're refinancing at rates that are double or triple, what they had 5 years earlier. Especially folks that use SBA money, because right now the SBA, the 504 program, which is very popular for purchasing storages, and the 7A program, those rates right now are around 8%. And with the 7A program, it's based off of prime plus a spread plus like 1%, 1.5%. So some of those folks they're getting quoted rates at like 9%, 9.5%. So it's affecting the smaller guys to get deals done, and it's also affecting them in terms of people that need to refinance, and also people that have adjustable rate mortgages. So the SBA 7A program, that's an adjustable rate. It adjusts every 3 years. So we're seeing people who got into those deals 3 years ago at 3.5%. Now their rates have adjusted 8.5%, 9%, and they're looking to either refinance or sell. So with them, I see it affecting them, but with some of these bigger groups, Prime Storage, Merritt Hill Capital, SROA, some of the top, I would say 20, 30 storage operators, I mean, they're still moving along, and they're actually buying more deals than they have in the past because there's less competition from the smaller guys.
So let's talk about that. I mean, what do you see happening over the next 24, 36 months with where rates are at now? Where do you think they're headed? The construction development piece of this puzzle?
Yeah, I think construction is slowing down. I'm seeing it slowing down a lot. I don't see as many new facilities going up just because the cost of the debt and the capital is just too much for somebody to bear for a 2 or 3 year lease up period. So a lot of these folks that are developers, maybe even yourself, you guys have kind of pulled back a bit on how aggressive you were being in development. So I'm not seeing as much development as I was up until maybe last year, right? 2022, I still saw a lot of deals being made. I don't see a lot of certificate of occupancy deals being done because people are not in the mood to pay, a high price for an asset that is not occupied, and now they have to, over the next 2 to 3 years, get that place leased up. So I don't see any of those deals happening. So I think that's going to affect development and C of O deals, which kind of helps existing facilities because now that's less competition that's coming onto the market. As far as where I think rates are going to go over the next 24 to 36 months, I wish I knew, but
I was going to say.
I think we're going to probably see rates increase up until the election next year. And then maybe after the election, things will kind of taper off or decrease depending on who gets in office, right?
There's been
You
that mantra out there, survive to 25, right? Survive to 25 is it said.
Yeah, and it depends on who gets in. I'm sure if it's like a Republican or if Trump or somebody gets in office, first thing they want to do is stimulate the economy. So we might see rates decrease. So really depends on I think who gets in next year, and that will show us where rates are going to go. Also, investor confidence in the president, that matters as well. So yeah, I wish I had the crystal ball to tell you what's going to happen after that, but I don't think we're going to see that type of major crash that we saw 2008, 2009, 2010. It's just different market, and then financing regulations were not what they, now they aren't what they were back then. Back then you had a lot of subprime mortgages, a lot of no documentation mortgages, a lot of people getting loans that really should not have had no business getting loans. So all of that really affected the market in a way that I don't see it affecting it today.
Well, we've all seen it, rates going down in different areas, most areas. And I believe, and I want your thesis on this as well, is a big part of that right now is such a large percentage of Americans are in homes where their rates are 3%, 4%, 5%. So there's just no real incentive for them to do anything
Right.
other than stay home. And we know that, what is it, 27, 30% of the storage business is based on people moving. So your take on what does that mean for us if these rates continue to stay elevated? You just got to kind of hold your breath and sit tight, or?
Yeah, you do, because you do, because again, like, there's no incentive for somebody to sell a house where they have a 3.5% mortgage. Like right now, the house that I live in, it's we're at 3.7% interest rate, and I'd be pretty foolish to sell that and then go and buy something more expensive at a 7.5% interest rate. So yeah, I think that's going to affect us for maybe the next year or two. And it's the reason why across the board, what I'm hearing from investors and owners is that their occupancy is down in major metro areas. Their occupancies are down probably 10% from what they were 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, but I can tell you some areas that I haven't seen big impact has been. Are you still? Something happened with my computer, so I think it fell asleep. But some areas where I haven't seen major impact is in certain tertiary and rural markets of the Midwest and the Southeast. For that, in certain areas, they're actually growing. They actually have population growth. They have people that are moving from the West Coast to places like Tennessee, Georgia, Arkansas, Alabama, Wisconsin, Kansas. So some of their rates are actually remaining pretty strong because they do have that movement. It's just movement from people coming from other states to their state. And there's a couple things because of that. Some of it is because the higher prices on the West Coast. Others, it's political, right? There's a lot of people in California that don't like the politics here, so they're moving to places that they think are more business friendly and more conservative. So, yeah,
So you're talking to a lot of people every day. What's
yep.
something that you're hearing from all these people you're talking to that's not being publicized or really well known right now within commercial real estate space?
Well, that's a good question.
Hey,
I mean,
I mean, and maybe nothing jumps out to you, but I know you're always talking to people, so I'm
yeah.
just wondering if maybe there's like kind of a pattern that you're seeing, like, Chris, it's really interesting. A lot of people are telling me this, and no one else is really talking about it, and maybe there's nothing.
No, there is something. I'm trying to think of what would be something that you may not have already heard or don't already know. I do know that there's a lot more buyers now are looking to be very creative, which I mean that's pretty obvious now. So they're looking for deals with seller financing. They're looking for stuff that has master lease options. Another thing I can say that people are looking at is they're looking at converting a lot of these retail and office assets that are distressed into self-storage. And maybe that's something that you and your audience may be aware of, but there's been a lot of that happening over the past couple months where you have these distressed Bed Bath and Beyonds or distressed retail centers or shopping malls, also office buildings, which a lot of people, post COVID found, hey, I can get just as much work done at my house as I could at the office. So people have been kind of scaling back from renting office spaces. I'm seeing a lot of those actually being transitioned over into storage, especially in major metro areas, right? If you're in LA County, if you're here in the Inland Empire, San Bernardino, Riverside County, where I'm at, uh, we see it all the time, and that's not just here, but all across the United States, where these big groups are starting to target these retail facilities and office facilities where they can buy them cheap, convert them into storage, and actually get earn a decent profit.
Are they doing full blown conversions, or are they just kind of, hey, we're going to buy this and sort of do a makeshift storage, or what's their strategy?
It depends on what they're getting. If you get a big retail building that has, say, 25-foot, 30-foot high ceilings, what they do is they just keep the shell of the building, and they already have utilities, they already have climate control there. They'll just come in and they'll put in some, portable, they'll have some portable makeshift units on the interior of that Kmart or Rite Aid, and then they'll build a mezzanine for a second story, and uh, and now they have a two-story facility that used to be a single-story Rite Aid that was 50,000 square feet with a 25, 30-foot high ceiling. So with that, I see that with office. I mean, they're not just gutting the entire interior of the office, like they're kind of building it around the office suites per se. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they actually play out as far as returns for those companies, those investors, right? So,
Yeah.
last question for you, my friend. The name of your company, Calvary Realty. I know on your website, in your bio, you've got some scripture there. So just talk about the impact that your faith has on your business.
Yeah. So when obviously the name Calvary Realty, it comes from the Bible, and Calvary, it's the piece of real estate where Jesus was crucified for our sins. So we wanted to be different and not just be like everyone else, right? We could have decided to name ourselves after our last names, right? Robinson and Robinson, or all these companies that have these
You kind of like Robinson and Robinson. That's not
right. But we didn't want to sound and look and have the appearance of everyone else. So we wanted to do something different. And we're strong Christian people. We wanted to infuse our faith into our business because we feel that if we have godly principles and a biblical foundation, that would actually help our business to grow and thrive. So we came up with Calvary Realty, and we were looking through the Bible to figure out, hey, what would be a good name that's related to real estate, but it also is related to the Bible, where people see it and they can immediately identify with the Bible. And Calvary Realty is what stuck. And in the beginning, I can say that we were a little bit nervous about naming the business Calvary Realty and having scriptures on the offering memorandums, because we were thinking, all right, maybe we would come off as too religious and it'd be a little too corny and people won't take us serious. But what we found is it actually helps us, because it helps us to stand out. It helps us to be remembered. I mean, and we even have people that are atheists and of other faiths that remember us and do business with us because they see that we stand out, and they appreciate the fact that, hey, we're willing to step out and be different and not just try to fit into the mold of all the other real estate companies.
good for you, man. Great choice. Love the name. Brandon, thank you for the time. If people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that? And I'll give you the last word, my friend.
Yeah, so they can go to our website, www.calvaryrealty.com. That's CalvaryRealty.com. You can also call us here in the office, 909-380-0073. That is our main office line. And I'm sure you probably see all of our listings. We're on List Self Storage, LoopNet, Crexy, YouTube. We're on Facebook. If you go in social media at Brandon_Calvary Realty, you'll see me with some pictures of storages, but also you might see some skydiving videos on there also. So
nice. Well, Brandon, congrats on your success. Again, what a blessing that self-storage chose you. It's been, I'm sure, a great ride. And so we appreciate the time, and thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a good one.